5 more minutes.
Probably should go.
Yeah, okay, certainly. This afternoon we're having a reading of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are on, I think it's chapter 15, the last visit to Keshab. Yeah, Keshab Chandra Sen was one of Ramakrishna's close, very close friends in Calcutta. As he said, who would he have to talk of these high religious feelings if he didn't have Keshab? Keshab has gotten very sick, and so this is Ramakrishna's last visit to him. We're on page 324 if you're following along in your own book. The bottom of the page. On his way to Dakshineshwar from Keshab's cottage, Sri Ramakrishna stopped at Jai Gopal Sen's house. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening. In the drawing room, Jai Gopal's relatives and neighbors had gathered. Vaikunta. Jai Gopal's brother said to the master, "Sir, we are worldly people. Please give us some advice." Master, do your duty to the world after knowing God. With one hand hold to the lotus feet of the Lord, and with the other do your work. Vaikunta, is the world unreal? Master, yes, it is unreal as long as one has not realized God. Through ignorance, man forgets God and speaks of I and mine. He sinks down and down, entangled in Maya, deluded by lust and greed. Maya robs him of his knowledge to such an extent that he cannot find the way to escape, though such a way does exist. Listen to a song. When such delusion veils the world through Mahamaya's spell, the Brahma is bereft of sense, and Vishnu loses consciousness. What hope is left for man? You all know from your experience how impermanent the world is. Look at it this way. How many people have come into the world and again passed away? People are born and they die. This moment the world is, and the next it is not. It is impermanent. Those you think to be your very own will not exist for you when you close your eyes in death. Again, you see people who have no immediate relatives, and yet, for the sake of a grandson, they will not go to Benares to lead a holy life. Oh, what will become of my Haru then, they argue. The narrow channel first is made, and there the trap is set, but open through the passage lies. The fish, once safely through the gate, do not come out again. Yet even though a way leads forth, encased within its own cocoon, the worm remains to die. This kind of world is illusory and impermanent. A neighbor. Why, sir, should one hold to God with one hand and to the world with the other? Why should one even stretch out one hand to hold to the world if it is impermanent? Master, the world is not impermanent if one lives there through knowing God. Listen to another song. O mind, you do not know how to farm. Fallow lies the field of your life. If you had only worked it well, how rich a harvest you would reap. Hedge it about with Kali's name if you would keep your harvest safe. This is the stoutest hedge of all, for death himself can not come near it. Did you listen to the song? Hedge it about with Kali's name if you would keep your harvest safe. Surrender yourself to God and you will achieve everything. This is the stoutest hedge of all, for death himself cannot come near it. Yes, it is a strong hedge indeed. If you but realize God, you won't see the world as unsubstantial. He who has realized God knows that God himself has become the world and all living beings. When you feed your child, you should feel that you are feeding God. You should look on your father and mother as veritable manifestations of God and the Divine Mother, and serve them as such. If a man enters the world after realizing God, he does not generally keep up physical relations with his wife. Both of them are devotees. They love to talk only of God and pass their time in spiritual conversation. They serve other devotees of God, for they know that God alone has become all living beings, and knowing this, they devote their lives to the service of others. Neighbor. But sir, such a husband and wife are not to be found anywhere. Master. Yes, they can be found, though they may be very rare. Worldly people cannot recognize them. In order to lead such a life, both husband and wife must be spiritual. It is possible to lead such a life if both of them have tasted the bliss of God. God's special grace is necessary to create such a couple. Otherwise, there will always be misunderstanding between them. In that case, the one has to leave the other. Life becomes very miserable if husband and wife do not agree. The wife will say to her husband day and night, "Why did my father marry me to such a person? I can't get enough to eat or to feed my children. I haven't clothes enough to cover my body or to give to my children. I haven't received a single piece of jewelry from you. How happy have you made me? Ah, you keep your eyes closed and mutter the name of God. Now do give up all these crazy ideas." Devotee. There are such obstacles, certainly. Besides, the children may be disobedient. There's no end to difficulties. Now, sir, what is the way? Master. It is extremely difficult to practice spiritual discipline and at the same time live a householder's life. There are many handicaps: disease, grief, poverty, misunderstanding with one's wife, and disobedient, stupid, and stubborn children. I don't have to give you a list of them. But still, there is a way out. One should pray to God, going now and then into solitude, and make efforts to realize Him. Neighbor. Must one leave home then? Master. No, not altogether. Whenever you have leisure, go into solitude for a day or two. At that time, don't have any relations with the outside world, and don't hold any conversation with worldly people on worldly affairs. You must live either in solitude or in the company of holy men. Neighbor, how can one recognize a holy man? Master, he who has surrendered his body, mind, and innermost self to God is surely a holy man. He who has renounced lust and greed is surely a holy man. He is a holy man who does not regard women with the eyes of a worldly person. He never forgets to look upon a woman as his mother and to offer her his worship, if he happens to be near her. The holy man constantly thinks of God and does not indulge in any talk except about spiritual things. Furthermore, he serves all beings, knowing that God resides in everybody's heart. These, in general, are the signs of a holy man. Now, we have to remember in the Gospel, when M recorded this, he was talking to a group of men only. So that's why it is so male-oriented. It was the custom in India at that time that when men gathered to sit with Ramakrishna, it was only men, and the women were in another room. Neighbor, must one always live in solitude? Master, haven't you seen the trees on the footpath along the street? They are fenced around as long as they are very young. Otherwise, cattle will destroy them. But there is no longer any need for fences when their trunks grow thick and strong. Then they won't break even if an elephant is tied to them. Just so, there will be no need for you to worry and fear if you make your mind as strong as a thick tree trunk. First of all, try to acquire discrimination. Break the jackfruit open only after you have rubbed your hands with oil. Then its sticky milk won't smear them. Neighbor, what is discrimination? Master, discrimination is the reasoning by which one knows that God alone is real and all else is unreal. Real means eternal, and unreal means impermanent. He who has acquired discrimination knows that God is the only substance and all else is non-existent. With the awakening of this spirit of discrimination, a man wants to know God. On the contrary, if a man loves the unreal, such things as creature comforts, name, fame, and wealth, then he doesn't want to know God, who is the very nature of reality. Through discrimination between the real and the unreal, one seeks to know God. Listen to a song. Come, let us go for a walk, O mind, to Kali, the wish-fulfilling tree, and there beneath it gather the four fruits of life. Of your two wives, dispassion and worldliness, bring along dispassion only on your way to the tree, and ask her son discrimination about the truth. By turning the mind within oneself, one acquires discrimination, and through discrimination, one thinks of truth. Then the mind feels the desire to go for a walk to Kali, the wish-fulfilling tree. Reaching that tree, that is to say, going near to God, you can without any effort gather four fruits, namely, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Yes, after realizing God, you can also get, if one so desires, Dharma, Artha, Kama, which are necessary for leading the worldly life. Neighbor, then why should one call the world Maya? Master, as long as one has not realized God, one should renounce the world, following the process of neti. But he who has attained God knows that it is God who has become all this. Then he sees that God, Maya, living beings, and the universe form one whole. God includes the universe and its living beings. Suppose you have separated the shell, flesh, and seeds of a bell fruit, and someone asks you the weight of the fruit. Will you leave aside the shell and the seeds and weigh only the flesh? Not at all. To know the real weight of the fruit, you must weigh the whole of it, the shell, the flesh, and the seeds. Only then can you tell its real weight. The shell may be likened to the universe, and the seeds to living beings. While one is engaged in discrimination, one says to oneself that the universe and the living beings are non-self and unsubstantial. At that time, one thinks of the flesh alone as the substance, and the shell and seeds as unsubstantial. But after discrimination is over, one feels that all three parts of the fruit together form a unity. Then one further realizes that the stuff that has produced the flesh of the fruit has also produced the shell and the seeds. To know the real nature of the bell fruit, one must know all three. It is the process of evolution and involution. The world, after its dissolution, remains involved in God, and God, at the time of creation, evolves as the world. Butter goes with buttermilk, and buttermilk goes with butter. If there is a thing called buttermilk, then buttermilk also exists. And if there is a thing called butter, then buttermilk also exists. Self exists, then the non-self must also exist. The phenomenal world belongs to that very reality to which the Absolute belongs. Again, the Absolute belongs to that very reality to which the phenomenal world belongs. He who is realized as God has also become the universe and its living beings. One who knows the truth knows that it is he alone who has become father and mother, child and neighbor, man and animal, good and bad, holy and unholy, and so forth. Neighbor. Then is there no virtue and no sin? Master. They both exist and do not exist. If God keeps the ego in a man, then he keeps in him the sense of differentiation and also the sense of virtue and sin. But in a rare few, he completely effaces the ego, and these go beyond virtue and sin, good and bad. As long as a man has not realized God, he retains the sense of differentiation and the knowledge of good and bad. You may say, virtue and sin are the same to me. I am only doing as God bids me. But you know in your heart of hearts that those are mere words. No sooner do you commit an evil deed than you feel a palpitation in your heart. Even after God has been realized, he keeps in the mind of the devotee, if he so desires, the feeling of the servant ego. In that state, the devotee says, O God, thou art the master, and I am thy servant. Such a devotee enjoys only spiritual talk and spiritual deeds. He does not enjoy the company of ungodly people. He does not care for any work that is not of a holy nature. So you see that God keeps the sense of differentiation even in such a devotee. Neighbor, you ask us, sir, to live in the world after knowing God. Can God really be known? Master, God cannot be known by the sense organs or by the mind, but he can be known by the pure mind, the mind that is free from worldly desires. Neighbor, who can know God? Master, what right? Who can really know him? But as for us, it is enough to know as much of him as we need. What need have I of a whole well of water? 1 jar is more than enough for me. An ant went to a sugar hill. Did it need the entire hill? A grain or two of sugar was more than enough. Neighbor, sir, we are like typhoid patients. How can we be satisfied with 1 jar of water? We feel like knowing the whole of God. Master, that's true, but there is also medicine for typhoid. Neighbor, what is the medicine, sir? Master, the company of holy men, repeating the name of God and singing his glories, and unceasing prayer. I prayed to the Divine Mother, Mother, I don't seek knowledge. Here, take thy knowledge, take thy ignorance. Give me only pure love for thy lotus feet. I didn't ask for anything else. As is the disease, so must the remedy be. The Lord says in the Gita, O Arjuna, take refuge in me. I shall deliver you from all sins. Take refuge at his feet. He will give you right understanding. He will take entire responsibility for you. Then you will get rid of the typhoid. Can one ever know God with such a mind as this? Can one pour 4 seers of milk into a 1-seer pot? Can we ever know God unless he lets us know him? Therefore I say, take shelter in God. Let him do whatever he likes. He is self-willed. What power is there in a man? Now that's the end of that chapter. If anyone has any questions or comments, anything that wasn't clear, okay, we will, if that's the case, we'll go on to chapter 16 with the devotees at Dakshineshwar. We have about 10 more minutes. Sunday, December 9th, 1883. Sri Ramakrishna was seated on the small couch in his room with Adhar, Manomohan, Rakal, M., Harish, and other devotees. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon. The Master was describing to them the exalted state of Sri Chaitanya. Master: Chaitanya experienced 3 states of mind. First, the conscious state, when his mind dwelt on the gross and the subtle. Second, the semi-conscious state, when his mind entered the causal body and was absorbed in the bliss of divine intoxication. Third, the innermost state, when his mind was merged in the great cause. This agrees very well with the 5 koshas, or sheaths, described in the Vedanta. The gross body corresponds to the Annamaya kosha and the Pranamaya kosha. The subtle body to the Manomaya kosha and the Vijnanamaya kosha, and the causal body to the Anandamaya kosha. The Mahakarana, the great cause, is beyond the 5 sheaths. When Chaitanya's mind merged in that, he would go into samadhi. This is called the Nirvikalpa, or Jada Samadhi. While conscious of the outer world, Chaitanya sang the name of God. While in the state of partial consciousness, he danced with devotees. And while in the inmost state of consciousness, he remained absorbed in samadhi. M to himself: Is the Master hinting at the different states of his own mind? There's much similarity between Chaitanya and the Master. Master: Chaitanya was divine love incarnate. He came down to earth to teach people how to love God. One achieves everything when one loves God. There's no need for Hatha Yoga. A devotee: Sir, what is Hatha Yoga life like? Master: A man practicing Hatha Yoga dwells a great deal on his body. He washes his intestines by means of a bamboo tube through his anus. He draws ghee and milk through his sexual organ. He learns how to manipulate his tongue by performing exercises. He sits in a fixed posture and now and then levitates. All of these are actions of prana. A magician was performing his feats when his tongue turned up and clove to the roof of his mouth. Immediately, his body became motionless. People thought he was dead. He was buried and remained several years in the grave. After a long time, the grave somehow broke open. Suddenly, the man regained consciousness of the world and cried out, "Come delusion, come confusion." All laugh. All these are actions of prana. The Vedantists do not accept Hatha Yoga. There is also Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga describes how to achieve union of God through the mind by means of discrimination and bhakti. This yoga is good. Hatha Yoga is not good. The life of a man in the Kali Yuga is dependent on food. I think we'll stop there this evening. We'll go on reading. This will be, I think we're reading next week. Let me see. Yeah, it's the Gita next Saturday with Swami Sarvadevanand, and that will be at 5 o'clock. So we'll continue the gospel this weekend after that, on the 17th. We will have also a Karma Yoga day on the 17th, when anyone can come and do some Karma Yoga here at the convent and the temple. It'll be 9 o'clock in the morning till noon. Then there's worship, and then have lunch at the convent. If you decide to come, just check in at the convent, which is on the other side of the parking lot. The lecture tomorrow will be Yoga and Psychotherapy with Swami Vedarupananda. You're all welcome to attend. And let's see. Wednesday the 14th? Yeah, Wednesday the 14th, our class on Swami Adbhutananda, How a Shepherd Boy Became a Saint, is canceled. So it will resume again on the 21st. And I think we will have one more session of How a Shepherd Boy Became a Saint. And then on the 28th, we'll start our new book on Swami Premananda on Wednesday the 28th. But are there any questions about what we've read today or any? And also, mark the 24th, Saturday, there's going to be a retreat from 10:30 to 3 with Swami Yogatmananda from Providence, Rhode Island, and the retreat will be on the Prophet by Khalil Gibran. He will give the lecture on Sunday the 25th on the Open Secret. So mark that day on your calendar, okay? John?
Did you say that Swami Sarvadevananda will be here Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
He is supposed to be here Saturday.
So
as far as we know. And
All
you're
right,
already
well,
on the list.
Thank you.
If anyone wants an appointment with Swami Sarvadevananda when he comes Saturday and Sunday, they have to call Davy at the convent and make an appointment. But he does give individual appointments on those days. Okay? Have I covered everything? Are there any other questions? Tomorrow's lecture is Yoga and Psychotherapy. Swami Sarvadevananda's lecture on the 11th is called Journey. I have no idea what he's talking about. The spiritual journey? Going to town? I don't know. We'll find out. And next Saturday will be the Bhagavad Gita at 5 o'clock. Okay? So we'll end with a small chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Good to see you all on Zoom.